I'm staring at my reflection in a bathroom mirror, and the woman looking back at me is someone I don't recognize anymore. 6 months ago, I was Emma Rodriguez, night shift nurse at City General Hospital. I saved lives, paid my taxes, called my mother every Sunday. I was good. I was normal. I was exactly the kind of person who would never, ever make the choice I made 3 hours ago. But here I am, washing blood from under my fingernails that isn't mine. The blood belongs to someone who will never hurt another child. Someone whose last words were begging me to reconsider. Someone who offered me money, promised me safety, swore they would change. I didn't listen. Because 6 months ago, I met a man who taught me something about myself that I wish I could forget. Something about the person I really am underneath all the good intentions and moral certainty. He showed me that given the right circumstances, the right pressure, the right choice between saving someone I love and saving my soul, I would choose love every single time, even if it damned me, even if it meant becoming someone I swore I'd never become. The mirror doesn't lie. The woman staring back at me has steady hands, clear eyes, and a heart that stopped racing 20 minutes after I watched a man die. She's calm, collected, already thinking about what needs to happen next. She terrifies me more than any monster I ever imagined. Because she is me, the real me, the me that exists when everything I thought I believed gets stripped away and only raw human need remains. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I would kill for money, I would have been insulted. If they'd said I would kill to protect someone I barely knew, I would have laughed. If they'd said I would kill and feel nothing but relief afterward, I would have recommended therapy. But they would have been wrong about the money part. I didn't kill for money. I killed because a Korean man with eyes like winter and hands like silk convinced me that some people deserve to stop breathing, that some evils are too big for courts and too dangerous for mercy, that sometimes love means becoming a monster to protect the people who matter. His name is David Kim, and he owns pieces of this city that don't appear on any map. He owns judges and police commissioners and city council members. He owns secrets that could topple governments and debts that could bankrupt nations. But more than that, he owns something inside me that I didn't know existed until he found it. The part of me that would do anything, become anything, sacrifice anything, to keep the people I love safe. The part that makes choices I can't undo and lives with consequences I can't escape. The part that looks in mirrors and sees a killer looking back. You think you know yourself. You think you have moral lines you'd never cross, principles you'd never compromise, limits you'd never exceed. You tell yourself that you're good, that you're different, that you'd never become the kind of person who makes peace with blood on their hands. But here's what I learned about human nature in the last 6 months. Here's the truth that haunts me every night when I close my eyes. There is no such thing as a good person or a bad person. There are only people who haven't been tested yet. The test came on a Tuesday. I was finishing my shift at the hospital when David appeared in the parking garage like shadows given form. I'd been working for him for 3 months by then, passing along information about patients who came through our emergency room, drug dealers who got shot up, gang members who needed surgery, people who moved through his world and sometimes needed to disappear from it. Simple work, clean work, information only, never action. Until Tuesday. He handed me a photograph, a man in his 50s, silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of face you'd trust with your children. Dr. Richard Hayes, David said. His voice never rose above a whisper, never carried emotion, but somehow managed to fill every space it touched. Pediatric surgeon at Children's Hospital, respected member of the community, married 32 years, 3 children, 5 grandchildren. I studied the photo. What about him? He's been selling children. The words hit like cold water. What? For the past 8 years, Dr. Hayes has been identifying children in foster care who won't be missed. Kids with no family, no advocates, No one to ask questions when they disappear. He arranges for them to be transferred to private facilities that don't exist. Then he sells them to buyers who pay premium prices for young, healthy, completely untraceable inventory. My hands started shaking. How many children? 47 that we can prove, probably twice that many in reality. And the police? Dr. Hayes has been very generous with his donations to police charities, very supportive of local politicians, very careful to choose victims that society doesn't value. I stared at the photograph. This man who looked like someone's grandfather, someone you'd trust to heal your children, someone who'd taken an oath to do no harm. What do you want me to do about it? David reached into his jacket, pulled out a small vial filled with clear liquid. Potassium chloride, untraceable, mimics cardiac arrest. Dr. Hayes will suffer a massive heart attack tomorrow during what should be a routine procedure. The vial felt warm in my palm, heavy with possibility and consequence. Why me? You have people who do this kind of work. Because Dr. Hayes will be operating on your nephew tomorrow. My blood went cold. Tommy? 7 years old, rare heart defect, surgery scheduled for 9 a.m. Dr. Hayes is the only pediatric cardiac surgeon in the state qualified to perform this particular procedure. I thought about Tommy, my sister's boy, the kid who drew me pictures and told me knock-knock jokes and believed that nurses were superheroes because we wore comfortable shoes and always had Band-Aids. Tommy who would die without surgery. Tommy who would be operated on by a man who'd spent 8 years selling children to predators. If something goes wrong during the surgery, I said slowly, if Dr. Hayes has an accident, then another surgeon takes over, someone clean, someone who sees children as patients instead of merchandise. And Tommy? Tommy lives, and 47 dead children get justice. What if the other surgeon isn't as skilled? What if Tommy doesn't survive the transition? David's expression never changed. What if Dr. Hayes decides Tommy would bring a good price on the market? The question hung in the air like poison, because that was the choice. Not between right and wrong, between two different kinds of nightmare. Risk Tommy's life to remove a monster from the world. Or protect Tommy and let 47 dead children remain unavenged while future victims disappeared into darkness. I looked at the vial in my hand. Such a small thing to carry such enormous weight. How would I do it? You're his surgical nurse tomorrow. You have access to his IV line. 1 injection during the procedure and he never wakes up. And if I get caught? You won't. I'll make sure of that. And if I refuse? David didn't answer immediately. Just studied my face like he was reading something written there that I couldn't see. If you refuse, then you refuse. Dr. Hayes continues operating on children. Some of them live normal lives. Some of them disappear. Tommy gets his surgery from a skilled surgeon who might decide he's worth more as merchandise than as a patient. That's not an answer. That's the only answer that matters. I held the vial up to the parking garage lights. Such an ordinary thing. Clear liquid that could be saline or sterile water or the end of everything I thought I was. David? Yes? How do you live with yourself making choices like this? I live with myself by remembering that every choice I don't make is also a choice. Every monster I leave alive kills again. Every child I don't save dies anyway. And that's enough for you? It has to be. Because the alternative is letting evil hide behind respectability while children disappear into hell. Standing in that parking garage, holding death in a tiny glass bottle, I realized something that changed everything about how I see the world. The hardest choices aren't between good and evil. They're between different kinds of love. Love for your family versus love for strangers. Love for innocence versus love for justice. Love for who you are versus love for who you could become. I put the vial in my pocket and walked to my car. Tommy's surgery was scheduled for 9 a.m. I had 11 hours to decide what kind of person I really was. What kind would you be? I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't eat breakfast. Couldn't focus on anything except the weight of that vial in my pocket and the sound of my own heartbeat counting down to 9 a.m. I kept thinking about Tommy, 7 years old, scared about his surgery, asking me yesterday if it would hurt when he woke up. I promised him it wouldn't, promised him everything would be fine. I didn't know then that keeping that promise would require me to become someone else entirely. The hospital felt different that morning. Corridors seemed longer, sounds seemed sharper, every face looked like it might be watching me, judging me, seeing something in my eyes that revealed what I was planning. But nobody looked twice at Emma Rodriguez, night shift nurse picking up an extra day shift to help with a complicated pediatric surgery. Nobody suspected that the woman checking her ID badge and grabbing coffee from the break room was carrying death in her pocket. Dr. Hayes arrived at 8:30, just like always. Silver hair perfectly styled, expensive shoes clicking against tile floors, that same trustworthy smile he used on worried parents. Looking at him, you'd never guess he'd spent 8 years selling children to predators. Never imagine that behind those kind eyes was something so twisted it made my stomach turn. That's what evil looks like in the real world. Not monsters with fangs and claws, just ordinary people who've learned to hide their darkness behind respectability. "Morning, Emma," he said, reviewing Tommy's chart. "Ready for a challenging one today?" "Always ready, doctor." "Good. This boy's lucky to have an aunt who works here. Family makes all the difference in pediatric cases." Family. The word hit like a punch to the chest. Because that's what this was really about. Not justice for 47 dead children, though that mattered. Not stopping future victims, though that mattered too. This was about Tommy, about family, about what you do when the person you love most in the world needs something only a monster can provide. In the prep room, I watched Dr. Hayes scrub his hands with the same meticulous care he probably used before selecting which children would bring the highest prices. Watched him check his instruments with the same precision he used to plan their disappearances. "IV access looks good," I reported, inserting the line that would soon deliver salvation or damnation, depending on how you looked at it. "Tommy's a strong kid, doctor," Hayes said. "Hearts like his respond well to surgical intervention." Hearts like his. Like Tommy was just another piece of inventory being evaluated. My hand found the vial in my pocket. Such a small thing. Clear liquid that would stop a heart in minutes, make it look like natural cardiac arrest brought on by surgical stress. David's voice echoed in my memory. "Every choice I don't make is also a choice. Every monster I leave alive kills again." Tommy was wheeled in at exactly 9 a.m., still groggy from pre-surgery sedation but trying to be brave. He looked so small on that table, surrounded by machines that would keep him alive while we stopped his heart to fix it. "Hey, buddy," I whispered, squeezing his hand. "I'm going to be right here the whole time, okay?" He nodded, trusting me completely. The way children trust adults to protect them. The way 47 children probably trusted Dr. Hayes before he sold them to people who saw them as toys. The surgery began with the usual precision. Incisions made, chest opened, heart exposed. The miracle of modern medicine performing its careful magic while I stood there holding liquid death. Dr. Hayes worked with absolute focus, his skilled hands moving through procedures he'd performed hundreds of times, saving lives while destroying others, healing children while trafficking them. The contradiction should have been impossible to reconcile, but humans are capable of compartmentalizing anything when it serves their needs. At 9:47 a.m., while Dr. Hayes was focused on repairing a valve that would let Tommy live a normal life, I made my choice. The injection took 3 seconds. Clear liquid disappearing into an IV line, mixing with saline, finding its way to a heart that had no idea what was coming. Dr. Hayes collapsed at 9:52 a.m., 5 minutes after I decided Tommy's life was worth more than my soul. You know what's scary about crossing lines you never thought you'd cross? It's not the guilt or the fear or the way your hands shake afterward. It's how quickly you start justifying it. How fast your brain finds reasons why it was necessary, inevitable, even righteous. Subscribe if you've ever surprised yourself by what you're capable of when someone you love needs protecting. Because the most dangerous moment isn't when you're choosing between right and wrong. It's when you realize there's no difference anymore. The emergency team worked on Dr. Hayes for 18 minutes before calling time of death. Cardiac arrest, they said. Stress-induced, probably from the demanding surgery schedule and lack of sleep. These things happen to older surgeons who push themselves too hard. Dr. Martinez took over Tommy's surgery without missing a beat. Younger, more careful, completely clean according to David's research. She finished the procedure with skill that made me wonder if Dr. Hayes had ever been as irreplaceable as everyone thought. Tommy came through perfectly. Heart repaired, prognosis excellent, recovery expected to be smooth and complete. I sat with him in post-op, watching his chest rise and fall with the steady rhythm of a fixed heart, and felt something I'd never experienced before. Not guilt, not relief, something darker and more addictive. Satisfaction. The deep, bone-level satisfaction of a problem solved permanently. Dr. Hayes would never sell another child. Never use his medical expertise to evaluate which kids would bring premium prices. Never smile at worried parents while planning their children's disappearance. The world was measurably better because he was no longer in it. And I was the reason why. Aunt Emma? Tommy's voice was weak but alert, the anesthesia wearing off slowly. I'm here, sweetheart. Did everything go okay? I feel different. Everything went perfectly. Your heart is fixed. You're going to be able to run and play and do everything other kids do. What happened to the first doctor? I remember him talking to me before I went to sleep. He got sick, but Dr. Martinez is very good. She took excellent care of you. Tommy nodded, accepting the explanation the way children accept all adult explanations about things beyond their control. If only he knew that his aunt had killed a man to save his life. If only he knew that the sick feeling in my stomach wasn't guilt but hunger for more of the same power. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Well done. Car waiting in parking garage level B. We need to talk. David. Of course he'd been monitoring the situation. Probably had people inside the hospital reporting every detail back to him. Tommy, I need to step out for a few minutes. The nurses will take good care of you, okay? Are you coming back? Always. The parking garage was empty, except for a black sedan with tinted windows. David sat in the passenger seat, door already open, waiting for me to get in. How do you feel? His first question, asked in that soft voice that somehow demanded complete honesty. Different. Good different or bad different? I don't know yet. The surgery went well. Tommy will make a full recovery. And Dr. Hayes is no longer a problem for anyone. I thought about those words. No longer a problem. Such a clinical way to describe the end of a human life, but accurate in ways that euphemisms like passed away or lost could never be. Problems got solved. Dr. Hayes was a problem. Now he wasn't. Simple mathematics. What happens now? I asked. Now you decide who you want to be. Emma Rodriguez, the nurse who saves lives within the system, or Emma Rodriguez, the woman who saves lives outside it. What's the difference? The difference is power. Real power to protect people who can't protect themselves. Resources to solve problems that courts can't handle. The ability to make sure monsters like Dr. Hayes disappear before they hurt anyone else. David's hand found mine in the darkness of the car. His fingers were warm, steady, completely calm. the hands of someone who'd made difficult choices and lived with the consequences. "I saw something in you the first time we met," he said. "Something most people never develop. The ability to love someone more than you love your own moral certainty. Is that a good thing? It's a necessary thing. Love without power is just sentiment. Power without love is just cruelty. But power guided by love? That changes the world." His grip tightened slightly. Not painful, but possessive, like he was claiming something that already belonged to him. "The question is whether you want to change the world or just survive in it." I thought about Dr. Hayes, about the 47 children who died while good people followed proper channels and trusted the system to protect innocence. Thought about Tommy, sleeping peacefully because someone was willing to cross every line that mattered. Thought about the woman I'd been that morning, and the woman I was becoming. I want to change it. Even if it means becoming someone your old self would fear. Especially if it means that. David smiled then, the first genuine smile I'd ever seen from him. "Then welcome to your real life, Emma. The one where you matter." When he leaned over to kiss me, it didn't feel like the end of my innocence. It felt like the beginning of everything I was meant to become. 3 weeks after Tommy's surgery, I killed again. This time it was easier, cleaner. No shaking hands, no second thoughts, no throwing up in hospital bathrooms afterward. Just cold, calculated efficiency that scared me with how natural it felt. The target was Margaret Foster, head of Child Protective Services, grandmother of 6, pillar of the community, woman who'd spent 15 years selling children from the foster system to buyers who paid cash and asked no questions. David handed me her file over dinner at a restaurant where every conversation happened in whispers and every waiter looked like they could break necks with their bare hands. "Insulin overdose," he said, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "She's diabetic, injects twice daily, easy to tamper with, impossible to trace." "How many children?" 137 that we can prove. Probably double that in reality." The number hit me like cold water, but not the way it would have a month ago. Now it just felt like mathematics. 137 reasons why Margaret Foster needed to stop breathing. When? Tomorrow night. She volunteers at the homeless shelter on Fridays. Always stays late, always alone in the medication storage room. David reached across the table, covered my hand with his. His touch was warm, possessive, completely confident that I would do what he asked without question. He was right. Because somewhere between watching Dr. Hayes collapse and sitting here planning another murder, I'd discovered something about myself that changed everything. I liked being necessary. Liked being the solution to problems that couldn't be solved any other way. Liked the way David looked at me when I proved I could cross lines other people wouldn't even approach. Most of all, I liked the power. The absolute final power to decide who deserved to keep existing in the world. "Emma," David said softly, "how does it feel, being someone who matters?" Different. Good different? Addictive different. His smile was sharp as broken glass. Good. Addiction keeps people motivated. Is that what this is? You getting me addicted to killing for you? I'm getting you addicted to being powerful. The killing is just a side effect. The honesty should have horrified me. Should have made me stand up, walk out, call the police, do something to stop the slide into whatever I was becoming. Instead, it made me lean closer. What happens when I can't stop? When I start craving it? Then you become exactly who you were meant to be. Which is? Mine. The way he said it sent heat through my chest. Not romantic heat. Something darker. The heat of belonging to someone who understood the parts of yourself you'd never shown anyone else. David? Yes? After tomorrow night, after Margaret Foster, what then? Then we move to bigger targets, more complicated problems, work that requires partners instead of just instructions. Partners. Not employee and boss, not killer and handler. Partners. What kind of work? The kind that changes cities, the kind that makes predators afraid to operate and children safe to exist. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to that whisper that somehow commanded total attention. The kind that requires someone I can trust completely. Someone who's proven they'll cross any line for the right reasons. And you think I'm that someone? I know you are. The question is whether you know it yet. I thought about Tommy, healthy and happy and completely unaware that his recovery had cost a man's life. Thought about 137 children who disappeared while Margaret Foster smiled at cameras and accepted awards for her community service. Thought about the woman I'd been 4 weeks ago who believed in systems and justice and the power of doing things the right way. That woman was weak, naive, useless when it really mattered. Yes, I said. I know exactly who I am. Say it. I'm someone who solves problems that can't be solved legally. Say it like you mean it. I'm someone who kills people who deserve to die, and I'm getting better at it every time. David's eyes went dark with something that might have been pride or hunger or both. Tomorrow night, he said. Margaret Foster's last Friday volunteer shift. Tomorrow night, I agreed. You think you understand the difference between right and wrong until you meet someone who shows you how meaningless those categories become when children are dying and monsters are prospering. You tell yourself you'd never become someone who plans murders over dinner and feels excited about the prospect. But here's what I learned about human nature. Give someone enough reasons and the right guidance, and they'll become anything. The question isn't whether you're capable of becoming a killer. The question is whether you've met the right person to teach you how. Margaret Foster died at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night, alone in a medication storage room, surrounded by insulin vials that could have saved lives instead of ending one. I watched her collapse from across the room, counted the seconds until her breathing stopped, then waited another 5 minutes to make sure before calling 911. By the time paramedics arrived, I was just another volunteer who'd discovered a tragic medical emergency. Diabetic shock brought on by accidental overdose. These things happened when people got careless with their medication. Nobody suspected the quiet nurse who'd been helping organize medical supplies. Nobody questioned why Margaret Foster had been alone in that room or how her insulin levels had gotten so dangerously high. The investigation lasted 3 days and concluded exactly what David said it would. Accidental death, no foul play suspected, case closed. How do you feel? David asked when we met at his apartment the following week. Proud. The word surprised me with how easily it came out. Not guilty, not horrified, not sick with what I'd done. Proud. Of what? Of being good at something that matters. David's apartment was everything I'd expected from a man who owned pieces of the city through fear and respect. Expensive, minimal, positioned to see everything while revealing nothing about the person who lived there. Except for one detail I hadn't expected. Photos of children on his desk. Not family photos, missing person flyers, police reports, hospital records. Who are they? I asked. Every child I couldn't save. Every life that ended because I wasn't fast enough, smart enough, ruthless enough to stop the people who killed them. I studied the faces. Boys and girls ranging from maybe 5 to 15, all with that same look of innocence that predators found so appealing. How many? 43. That I know about. And now? Now there are fewer predators hunting them. David moved behind me, his hands settling on my shoulders with the possessive weight I'd grown to crave. Margaret Foster will never sell another child. Dr. Hayes will never operate on victims he plans to traffic. The world is measurably safer because of choices you made. Choices we made. No, Emma, choices you made. I gave you information and opportunities. You decided what to do with them. His grip tightened slightly. Not painful, but claiming. The question is what you want to do with the next opportunity. What kind of opportunity? The kind that requires partnership instead of just instruction. The kind where you help plan, execute, and clean up. The kind where your opinion matters as much as mine. I turned to face him, saw something in his expression I'd never seen before. Not just approval or satisfaction. Need. You need me. I need someone I can trust completely. Someone who understands that some problems require permanent solutions. Someone who won't hesitate when hesitation costs lives. And you think I'm that someone? I know you are. The question is whether you're ready to stop pretending you're still the woman who saves lives within the system. The challenge hung between us like a bridge I could choose to cross or burn. What would partnership look like? It would look like sharing everything. Information, resources, decisions, consequences. And personally? Personally, it would look like admitting what's been building between us since the day you chose Tommy's life over your conscience. David stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat from his body, smell the expensive cologne that probably cost more than my monthly salary used to. It would look like belonging to someone who understands exactly who you are and values you for it instead of despite it. And if I want that? If I want to be your partner in everything? Then you stop going home to your old apartment and your old life and your old pretenses about being a normal person with a normal job. Where would I go instead? Here, with me. Where you can be exactly who you're becoming without having to hide it. The offer hung in the air like a contract written in invisible ink. Everything I'd been moving toward since the moment I injected potassium chloride into Dr. Hayes's IV line. David? Yes? If I say yes, if I move in here and become your full partner, what happens to Emma Rodriguez, the nurse? She disappears. Officially resigns for personal reasons, moves away, starts a new life somewhere else. And in her place? In her place is someone who matters, someone who makes decisions that reshape reality, someone who's mine. When he kissed me this time, it tasted like ownership and promise, and the end of every life I'd never live. Yes, I whispered against his mouth, I want to be yours. Completely mine? Completely. Even if it means becoming someone who scares other people? Especially if it means that. David smiled, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked almost vulnerable. Then welcome home, Emma. Your real home? Looking around his apartment that would soon be our apartment, at the photos of children I'd helped save and the city spread out below us like a map of territory to be conquered, I realized something that should have terrified me. I wasn't losing myself in David's world. I was finally becoming myself. 2 months after moving in with David, I discovered the real reason he chose me. I'm going through his files, learning about upcoming targets when I find a folder marked with my name, not Emma Rodriguez Current or Emma Rodriguez Operations, just Emma Rodriguez 1997 to 2003. My hands shake as I open it. Inside are photographs I don't remember being taken, medical records from hospitals I don't remember visiting, police reports about incidents I don't remember surviving. But the face in every photo is definitely mine. 7 years old, hollow-eyed, broken in ways that make my chest tight with recognition I can't quite grasp. The medical records detail injuries consistent with prolonged abuse, sexual trauma, psychological damage requiring extensive therapy and medication, a child so destroyed that her mind simply forgot. The police reports mention foster homes, group facilities, a system that moved me from place to place until I disappeared from official records entirely at age 10. Disappeared into a private facility run by Dr. Margaret Chen. Margaret Chen, not Foster. Chen. The woman I killed 2 months ago wasn't just someone who sold children. She was someone who sold me. My legs give out. I sink into David's chair, staring at documents that prove everything I thought I knew about my life was constructed from lies and buried memories. You found them. David's voice behind me. Calm, unsurprised, like he expected this moment. You knew. My voice sounds strange, distant. You knew who I was before you ever approached me. I knew who you had been. I wasn't sure who you'd become. I turned to face him, this man who spent months teaching me to kill, and see something in his expression I've never noticed before. Not love, not partnership, ownership. Dr. Chen sold me. Among others, yes. To whom? David moves closer, his presence filling the room in ways that used to feel comforting but now feel suffocating. To people who collect broken children, who enjoy the process of breaking them further. For how long? 3 years. Until you were so damaged that even they got bored with you. The words hit like physical blows. 3 years of abuse so severe it literally rewrote my brain, made me forget everything about who I was before. Then what happened? Then you were sold again. To someone who specialized in rehabilitation, creating new identities for children who couldn't remember their old ones. And that's how I became Emma Rodriguez. That's how you became Emma Rodriguez, ward of the state, model student, future nurse, someone clean and respectable with no memory of what you'd survived. I stare at the files scattered across his desk. Documentation of a childhood so horrific my mind had erased it completely to survive. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to know if the person you'd become could access the strength of the person you'd been. Whether Emma the nurse could tap into the power of Emma the survivor. And now you know? David's smile is sharp as broken glass. Now I know you're exactly who I thought you were. Someone who's already survived the worst humanity can offer. Someone who learned to compartmentalize trauma so completely that she could function normally while carrying that darkness inside. Someone broken enough to be useful to you. Someone strong enough to be essential to me. The distinction should matter, but looking at these photos of myself as a child, I can't find the energy to care about semantics. Did you orchestrate everything? The hospital where I worked, Tommy's surgery, Dr. Hayes? I orchestrated the opportunities. You made the choices. But you knew I'd make those choices because of what happened to me as a child. I knew you had the capacity for them. Whether you'd access that capacity was up to you. David sits on the edge of his desk, studying my face like he's reading something written there in a language only he understands. Emma, do you know why children who survive extreme trauma often become either victims or predators? Because the trauma changes how your brain processes right and wrong. Because trauma teaches you that the world is divided into people who have power and people who suffer. Most survivors spend their lives trying to avoid suffering again, but some learn to seek power instead. And I learned to seek power. You learn to seek justice. There's a difference. I look at the photos again, at the hollow-eyed child who survived 3 years of hell and came out functional enough to save lives as a nurse. At the woman who could inject poison into someone's IV line and feel nothing but satisfaction afterward. What am I to you, David? Really? You're someone who understands that monsters exist because good people let them. Someone who's lived through what happens when the system fails to protect innocence. Someone who has personal reasons to make sure predators face consequences. Someone you can manipulate because of my trauma. Someone I can trust because of your trauma. The words settle between us like a contract neither of us signed but both of us have been living by. You think you know yourself until someone shows you documents that prove your entire identity was constructed to help you forget the worst parts of being human. You think you're choosing your own path until you realize someone's been guiding you toward choices that serve their needs as much as yours. But here's what I learned about surviving trauma. It doesn't matter why you became strong enough to protect yourself and others. What matters is that you did. Subscribe if you've ever discovered that your worst experiences made you capable of things you never imagined. Because sometimes the most damaged people make the most powerful protectors. The children in those photos on your desk, I say quietly, the ones you couldn't save, were any of them like me? Survivors who got recycled back into the system? All of them. And you blame yourself for not finding them in time? I blame myself for not understanding soon enough that sometimes you have to become a monster to fight monsters. Is that what we are? Monsters fighting monsters? We're survivors who decided that other children shouldn't have to survive what we survived. David stands, moves closer, his presence somehow both threatening and comforting. The question is, what happens now that you know the truth about your past? What are my options? You can see this as manipulation and walk away. Go back to being Emma Rodriguez, the nurse. Live a normal life. Pretend the last few months never happened. Or you can see this as preparation. Recognition that you were always meant for this work because you understand it in ways other people never could. I look at the files, at the evidence of a childhood that shaped me into someone who could kill without hesitation and sleep peacefully afterward. Think about Tommy, safe and healthy because I was willing to cross every line that mattered. Think about the children who are sleeping in their own beds tonight instead of being sold to predators because Margaret Chen is dead. Think about the woman I was before I found these files and the woman I am after. David? Yes. I don't want to walk away. Even knowing that I chose you because of your trauma? Especially knowing that. Why? Because my trauma made me someone who can protect other children from experiencing theirs. When David kisses me this time, it doesn't taste like manipulation or ownership or lies. It tastes like recognition. Two broken people who found a way to turn their damage into something useful. "Welcome to your real life, Emma," he whispers. "The one you were always meant to live." But as I kiss him back, I realize there's one file he didn't show me. One piece of this puzzle he's still keeping secret. Because David Kim doesn't just hunt predators randomly. He hunts them systematically, methodically, with the precision of someone who has a very specific list of targets. And I'm beginning to suspect that list includes everyone who hurt the hollow-eyed child in those photographs. Everyone who hurt me. Starting with the people who bought me from Dr. Chen 20 years ago.